It has already been 3 years since Elden Ring's release, though it has hardly faded from our memory and the public eye. FromSoft's challenging but rewarding gameplay paired with an innovative open world made waves across the industry that we are still feeling to this day. Players, reporters, and developers alike arose in an uproar of praise, complaints, and of course, hostile speculation.
What?
Opinions aside, one cannot deny the rampant success of the title. Elden Ring is one of the most well-known games of all time, even though the game is, well, confusing, disgusting, scary, huge, and of course, hard.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
In many ways, Elden Ring's formula disagrees with modern game design philosophy. Well, not simply disagrees, let's be honest here. In one fell swoop, FromSoft proved that the popular philosophy was wrong. The success of Elden Ring shocked the entire Western game industry, which was, and unfortunately still is, moving in the wrong direction. Multiple devs came out at the time to voice how poorly designed the game is, not recognizing the irony of yelling their complaints into a sea of praise from the game's fans. As Western titles move further away from the complex narrative and thought-provoking gameplay of past decades, Elden Ring stepped in and dropped the player into an unknown world with no direction or quest markers. And within that world, every friendly NPC even can only be trusted as far as they can be thrown. For Elden Ring rewards failure, not success. Instead of being coddled in a blanket of quest objectives and tutorials, Elden Ring puts the player in front of this guy.
Bruh.
In an effort to say, you are bad at this game right now. I dare you to get better. This approach, of course, did receive a negative response, as Elden Ring isn't for everyone. Right? Well, maybe not. In a sense, Elden Ring's unforgiving gameplay and the obtuse nature with which it treats the player actually appeals to a wider audience than the average modern and simpler title, as it can be played in any way, not just one. More importantly than that though, it treats the player with respect, assuming that they can get better and solve problems based on intuition rather than instruction. When a new player first walks into the splendor of the lands between, will they be drawn to explore the castle to the north, the wetlands to the east, or the beaches and cliffs of the west? Throughout a playthrough, will they choose to study the game's lore and its pantheon of gods? Will they find enjoyment in the game's in-depth magic system? Or will they find the most interesting way to hit enemies with a big stick? What I mean is, Elden Ring's appeal varies from player to player, and while the main story will be followed similarly by everyone, each person will have found an independent and unique path to the finale that suits who they are and what they enjoy. Compare this to any other modern quest-driven RPG with map markers on minimaps and difficulty sliders. These games are supposedly more player-friendly, but are they? Or are they simply catering to an idea of the player? An idea that is so broad and oftentimes insulting that its definition cannot fit any single person. In these games, the player is supposed to go to X location and fight X bad guys. Always in that order. If they try anything else, well, put an invisible wall up so they can't mess up our movie disguised as a video game. It seems to me like quite a few of these devs wish they went to film schools, since the most important aspect of gaming is lost upon them. Video games are unique because they are the only form of media that we are able to participate in and contribute to actively. So, removing our freedom from the picture can still be fun, if done right, like in The Last of Us Part 1, but how often is it done right and truly rewarding? I'm not a one-sided guy, I do have an answer to that. 2 good examples, in fact, of quest marker games, as I like to call them, that manage to be fulfilling. Let's start with Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a story-centric RPG, where most of the game's value and interest lies in the main questline. Every quest is also marked on the map, and every step in the quests are easy to follow and directed by the game. But to combat simplicity, at basically every point throughout the main story, the player will have more than one quest available. Multiple main quest markers will be on the map, and you get to choose which character you want to spend time with. Or you can just screw off and enjoy a side quest or one of the many non-quest activities in the game, like hunting, robbing, and, my personal favorite, exploring points of interest. The world space feels alive, and isn't just beautiful, but its landmarks are gravitational, pulling us in with promise of reward or intrigue. Putting Red Dead Redemption aside for the moment, let's take a look at my other example, one closer to the subject of today's video. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Skyrim is also a quest marker checklist. Gameplay often boils down to go here, then here, etc. The main story and faction questing have no major choices for the player to make, and must be followed in order, and often are pushy since the world is in danger or something or other. But similarly to Red Dead Redemption 2, Skyrim's world space is massive, and the player can find side quests or dungeons or any other way to spend their time ignoring the main questline. The unnamed protagonist even leaves room for the player to get creative and write in-depth backstories for their characters and develop unique stories. Skyrim itself is also beautiful, and the points of interest pull the attention of the player, just like Red Dead Redemption 2. Everyone who's played an Elder Scrolls game knows that being distracted by... well, it's part of the main gameplay loop. Both of these games stand out in a sea of open-world RPGs. I personally believe that the traits I listed here are the reason why. It's also no surprise that the same traits are shared by Elden Ring, not the other traits that are shared by, shall we say, less successful movie simulators. Now, I want to be clear before moving on. I don't think that every game should be like Elden Ring, especially when it comes to difficulty. Elden Ring and other FromSoft games are developed around difficulty. A lot of time is spent making each fight unique, fair, beautiful, and fulfilling, which is great. But we have that style of gameplay from FromSoft and other Souls-likes. Game development takes a lot of time, and when it comes to the Elder Scrolls, for example, I'd like Bethesda to spend their time making cities, NPCs, quests, and the RPG aspects unique, fair, beautiful, and fulfilling. Different games obviously have different goals, and should focus on what makes them unique. Elden Ring did, though, prove to the industry that every gamer doesn't want hand-holding. In fact, many of us hate it. Its success proves that studios can take a shot in the dark and develop something groundbreaking, challenging, and different, and as long as it's actually good, it can do very well in the market. Bethesda is not a very popular name in the industry at the moment. The upcoming Elder Scrolls 6 will, to the average gamer, seal the fate of the company as a comeback or a has-been. So, what can they do to ensure their next game's success? I think the solution, and the industry's future at large, can be solved by taking lessons from Elden Ring. I think it's safe to say that from the Elder Scrolls 6, players first and foremost want an expansive and in-depth world space to feel a part of. I think that the lack of this is what scorned many people away from Starfield. Within that world space should be ample opportunity to see not only the land's history, but also opportunities to participate in many side quests or simple points of interest. Bethesda pulls this off quite well, in my opinion, but on top of that, more importantly, there should be things that we haven't seen before in any other game, or fantasy title, period. Elden Ring delivered beautiful environments that, I'll say it again here and probably a few more times after this, but are not only beautiful, but simply gravitational. Imagine another Elder Scrolls game where there's not just mammoths and mountains, but also alien landscapes like those we saw in Morrowind. If Elder Scrolls 6 is in Hammerfell, I don't just want fields of sand and rainforests. I want to see magical and interesting pyramid-like structures shaped by the unique culture of the Redguards, or floating masses of vines and other plant life in the jungles, innocent-looking but deadly to wander near, maybe worshipped by jungle tribals, or tied to the phase of the moons. One of my most memorable moments from my first Elden Ring playthrough was in the Weeping Peninsula to the south. Just exploring, I started to hear a distant rumble and ringing. Immediately, I was drawn to what could possibly be making that noise. I'll never forget seeing the bell towers in the distance, lumbering and strange. I sat there, mouth wide open and perfectly still, just admiring the creatures, then the artists, and finally the game, wondering what else could possibly be out there. I want that experience from the Elder Scrolls. Quest design in Elden Ring is unapologetic, to say the least. The player can make mistakes that alter the game's ending just because they chose to accept something without thinking. NPCs can be anywhere in the world space, so to finish quest lines, the player is forced to truly consider where that NPC may have gone. They must actually pay attention to character traits and backstories, remembering everything, hypothesizing where to find them next. This is confusing, and I've seen people say terrible, but again, just look at the success of the game. It clearly has merit, but I admit, it would be hard to translate into a more traditional RPG. Bethesda shouldn't stray too far from their roots, although I'd love to see less hand-holding and NPCs treating the player like a, well, baby, telling them how to do everything. I'm definitely not asking for no guidance, but I'd love less. Use a map marker to point us to a dungeon, for example, but once we get there, let us explore it on our own to find what we're looking for. Force me to open up the journal and read a description of the item I'm looking for and the environment it may be found in. Elden Ring proved that players don't need hand-holding, and many, like myself, don't want it. Finally, the world building and lore of Elden Ring is top-notch, though I'd argue that the Elder Scrolls lore is also top-notch. I've spent hours studying and theorizing within both universes. In many ways, a game's lore is its personality. It is how it presents itself. It tells you what you can expect from it, whether things will be lighthearted or serious, dark or light. Both titles have very in-depth personalities in this regard. But what sets Elden Ring apart from what we've seen from the Elder Scrolls is in-game execution of that personality. Elden Ring shows everything. Every item has an in-depth description explaining its historical relevance and impact. The places you visit in-game are all incredibly involved, with secrets to be found and histories to uncover. And reading the lore will only draw you in further. Again, Elden Ring shows that casual players won't be scared away by in-depth writing and complex narratives. Contrary to Western game design philosophy, they aren't dumb and will still find it interesting. While the more nerdy and involved players like myself, well, we crave lore and world building. If Bethesda wants to succeed, we need to see the lore's impact on the game world as we see in Elden Ring. The personality needs to be defined instead of the lore just being used as a guideline for the way things should look and feel. The Elder Scrolls 6 has no excuse. It should ooze lore. Every province of the Elder Scrolls universe has decades of speculation and stories behind them. So wherever the game takes place will have plenty to draw from. Now, I admit, I am quite the optimist. I believe that the Elder Scrolls 6 will be great. I am such a lover of the Elder Scrolls that I am begging for just about anything having to do with the IP at this point, so that might be clouding my vision, but I believe that Bethesda has learned their lesson. They know that they can't afford a flop. More importantly, I believe that ZeniMax and Microsoft at large have also learned this lesson. And they know that they should leave it to the nerds in the game studio to make good games, rather than pushing things like Fallout 76 again. The video game industry is changing a lot right now. Game devs are losing jobs left and right, and well-loved, old studios are closing up shop. This is obviously to anyone due to the last decade or so of mismanagement. It is no question whether or not the industry is shifting. I just hope that it shifts back towards the right direction. I hope you have all enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments below what you loved most in Elden Ring and what you think would translate well into any other game. If you've enjoyed this video, do me a favor by leaving a like and clicking that subscribe button. For now, I am Sir Schmib. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Until next time.